Committee of Commerce, Science, and Transportation is called to order. We're going to start this morning's nomination hearing, and when we have a quorum present, we will recess the hearing and move to voting out the nominees. But we'll go ahead and start the hearing while we're waiting for other members to pull out of other committees that are meeting simultaneously. And as soon as we get a quorum, we'll suspend. We now turn to this morning's nomination hearing. With us are Michael Graham, nominee for member of the National Transportation Safety Board; Ethan Klein, nominee for Associate Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy and U.S. Chief Technology Officer; and Joyce Meyer, nominee for Undersecretary of Commerce for Economic Affairs. Mr. Graham is a safety professional and aviator who began his career in the Navy flying combat missions in Operation Desert Storm. After nearly a decade of military service, he worked at Boeing McDonnell Douglas and then at Textron Aviation, the manufacturer of the Cessna aircraft. Mr. Graham oversaw the safety, security, and standardization of all flight operations at Textron. Since January 2020, he has served as a board member on the NTSB, actively participating in on-site investigations, analyzing and approving reports, and spearheading initiatives to improve safety across the transportation sector. Our next nominee, Ethan Klein, will serve as U.S. Chief Technology Officer within OSTP. In this role, Mr. Klein will help oversee tech policy for the administration and promote development in emerging fields like artificial intelligence. We know Beijing is marshaling its state resources to become the global leader in AI by 2030. America must not fall behind. I was very encouraged by the administration's AI action plan, which OSTP helped to author, and I'm confident that Mr. Klein will be a key player in this new era of geopolitical competition. An MIT-educated nuclear scientist, Mr. Klein served in OSTP during the first Trump administration as a policy advisor to now Director Michael Kratsios. He helped draft executive orders on artificial intelligence, drones, and biotechnology. And now, beyond advancing frontier research and development, he will drive the transfer of technology from lab to market, not through the heavy hand of the state, as China is doing, but in the American way, through free enterprise. Finally, we have Joyce Meyer, whose decades of fiscal and administrative experience prepare her to oversee the census as Undersecretary of Commerce for Economic Affairs. On Capitol Hill, she served as a longtime aide to former Speaker of the House and noted fiscal wonk, Paul Ryan. In the first Trump administration, she served as a Deputy Assistant to the President for Legislative Affairs. And now, she is a Senior Advisor at the Commerce Department, currently detailed to the White House. Ms. Meyer, who holds an MBA from Georgetown, will be a steady economic hand amid potential changes in markets. I look forward to hearing from her and all of our nominees today. I now turn to Ranking Member Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Graham, Dr. Klein, Ms. Myers, thank you for being here. Congratulations on your nominations or renominations in one case, and thank you for your willingness to serve. Mr. Graham, you have been renominated to a 5-year term of the NTSB, which plays a vital role in investigating root causes of some of the most devastating transportation accidents in our country and identifying key areas of improvement. This includes disasters like the East Palestine derailment, which Mr. Graham deployed as the lead investigator. The NTSB has made 34 recommendations in response to that derailment. Over a year has passed since that report came out, and yet most of the recommendations still remain open. So I hope this is a moment where we can talk about some of those and the committee can work together to address those recommendations in a reauthorization bill. The NTSB is critically important in investigating the tragic mid-air collision in DCA airspace that killed 67 people in January. But this wasn't an isolated incident. The NTSB found over 15,000 near-miss incidents between commercial aircraft and helicopters in the 3 years leading up to the crash, and controllers warned that the FAA helicopter routes were dangerous, but that information was dismissed by the agency, the FAA. Meanwhile, the Army has been operating 100% of its missions with ADSB out, not transmitting. These weren't unknown risks. They were ignored warnings that cost lives. So Mr. Graham, as someone who participated in that NTSB investigation of the tragedy, I look forward to asking your assessment about the fundamental changes we need at the FAA to prevent future tragedies. I also want to point out that you were renominated 1 month after President Trump illegally fired Vice Chair Alvin Brown, one in a series of illegal firings across multiple independent boards and commissions, including most recently Democratic member of the Surface Transportation Act. You were nominated, Mr. Klein, you were nominated to be Associate Director of the White House Office of Science and Technology and the next U.S. Chief Technology Officer. If confirmed, you would play a key role in executing the nation's science and technology agenda, including collecting our collective efforts to ensure that the United States maintains its leadership in AI. No doubt AI will change our world, but there's lots of areas in which the federal government should play a role: education, training in AI, and promoting American leadership, while also protecting consumers and children from harm. To be clear, I do support a federal preemption bill, but only when it's paired with the appropriate federal framework, which includes solid guardrails to ensure that America is the leader in setting AI standards and rules of the road. I look forward to hearing from you on those priorities and other OSTP priorities. Finally, Ms. Myers, if confirmed, you will be the Undersecretary for Economic Affairs at the Department of Commerce, and you will be responsible for overseeing the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Some of the most important economic data and statistics that our government produces, including GDP estimates and international trade deficits. American businesses across every industry, from housing to retail to technology to manufacturing, depend on those accurate statistical information from the federal government that is free from political influence. Without it, businesses find themselves flying blind and unable to invest with confidence. So everybody, I believe, should agree on economic statistical agencies' ability to produce that data free from political influence. So I hope you will agree with that, and plan to ask you questions about that and your general plans for the integrity of economic data and what we need to do to continue to move forward collectively on America's commerce agenda. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to hearing from our nominees.
Thank you, and we'll now take the opening statements from the witnesses. We'll start with Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you as I seek confirmation for another term as a board member of the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. I am deeply honored by President Trump's nomination, and I am grateful for the support and partnership this committee has provided both to me and to the NTSB throughout my service. I would like to begin by recognizing the people whose love and support have made it possible for me to be here today. My wife of more than 36 years, Lori, is here with me. Watching online are our sons, Matthew and Zachary, along with their spouses, Corinne and Crystal, and our grandson, Everett. I am also joined by my incredible staff, Ann Cairns and Brian Arata. I am truly blessed with the best family and support system anyone could hope for. Having served my country as a naval aviator for nearly a decade, and more recently as a member of the board for the past 5.5 years, I know there is no greater privilege than public service. At the NTSB, that privilege also carries a profound responsibility of protecting the traveling public across every mode of transportation. Although I spent more than 3 decades in aviation before joining the board, I have found that many of the same safety principles that guided me as an aviator apply across every mode of transportation. During my time at the NTSB, I have developed a simple mantra: respect the unexpected. I believe this should be a guiding principle for any organization, but especially for those entrusted with transportation safety. We cannot predict every outcome in transportation. Flight crews do not expect a door plug to separate mid-flight. Rail workers do not expect a train to approach at high speed while they are working on the track. Communities do not expect hazardous materials from a train derailment to be released into the air. And tragically, no one expects a helicopter to be at the same altitude as a commercial jet on final approach into one of the busiest airports in the country. Respecting the unexpected means putting systems in place that anticipate a wide range of scenarios and prevent tragedies before they occur. When done right, These systems empower people at every level of an organization to speak up, report hazards without fear of retaliation, and even stop operations until risks are addressed. Our goal is always zero accidents, zero fatalities. But the reality is that safety depends on recognizing risk and managing it responsibly. If confirmed, I will continue to be guided by that principle as I work with industry, government, and communities to evaluate new technologies, advance best practices, and strengthen our nation's safety record across every mode of transportation. I am proud of the NTSB's work and reputation, and if confirmed, I look forward to helping build upon both. Thank you again, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee for this opportunity to appear before you. I welcome your questions and hope to earn your continued trust and support in serving the American people at the NTSB.
Thank you very much. Dr. Klein, you're recognized.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and other members of this esteemed committee for the opportunity to appear before you this morning. It is the honor of my life to sit before this committee as President Donald J. Trump's nominee for Associate Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy. I would like to begin today by thanking the people without whom I would not be here today. To my parents, Stephen and Shoshana, thank you for instilling in me a deep appreciation and respect for education and lifelong learning. To my twin sister, Dahlia, who will be starting as a professor of physics at the University of Chicago, thank you for setting the example of American scientific leadership we seek to preserve. And to the love of my life, my incredible wife, Jennifer, and her family, thank you for supporting me every step of this journey, from government service to academia and back again. I'm the luckiest man in the world to have you as my life partner. To my friends and family, I love you all. And of course, I must give thanks to my God. Our national science and technology ecosystem is the engine that has driven America to become the most innovative nation in the world, built on the bedrock of academia, industry, and government working together in tandem. I'm blessed to have worked across all three of these pillars, giving me a comprehensive perspective on how to fine-tune their interactions to maximize impact. In the first Trump administration, I served as a policy advisor at OSTP, leading emerging technology initiatives in artificial intelligence, unmanned aircraft systems, and agricultural biotechnology. I witnessed the role that government can play in laying the foundations of the technological revolutions defining our times. My academic journey began in the public schools of South Jersey and brought me to the laboratories of MIT to study chemistry and physics as an undergrad and nuclear engineering for my PhD. During my graduate work, I explored new frontiers of nuclear technology in collaboration with our national laboratories. Later, as an MBA student at Stanford, I saw firsthand how the co-location of capital and talent in Silicon Valley created an unparalleled innovation ecosystem. Across my roles, including in financial advisory and at a deep tech incubator, I've engaged with hundreds of technology companies, spanning hyperscalers to university spinouts, guiding them on how to engage more effectively with government. OSTP will celebrate its 50th birthday in May, but the role of providing scientific and technical advice to the president is much older. Its precursor, the Office of Scientific Research and Development, led the Manhattan Project, and it was the President's Science Advisory Committee that recommended the creation of NASA, taking America to the moon and victory in the space race. Today, OSTP can lead America to victory in the next race, to achieve global dominance in AI and other critical and emerging technologies. In a letter to OSTP Director Michael Kratsios earlier this year, President Trump laid out 3 charges for the office: to secure our position as the unrivaled world leader in critical and emerging tech, to revitalize America's science and technology enterprise, and to ensure that scientific progress and technological innovation fuel economic growth and better the lives of all Americans. Under Director Kratsios' leadership, OSTP has already taken significant actions to answer that charge, authoring America's AI Action Plan and drafting and working to assist in issuing executive orders to promote AI, accelerate nuclear energy, and spur advanced aviation. While much has been done, there is yet much to do. If confirmed, my mission will be to continue implementation of those actions and to drive new efforts aimed at removing unnecessary barriers to innovation, leading national science and technology efforts across the ecosystem, and establishing new models for public-private partnerships. To meet today's challenges, OSTP must focus further on national tech policy, modernizing its models for government to partner with academia and the private sector, which now leads a growing share of technological development. That requires a forward-leaning approach to public-private collaboration that reflects the realities of 21st century innovation. Furthermore, technology now cuts across every domain of government. Consequently, OSTP must more fully engage across the policymaking, operational, and implementation arms of the federal government. In addition to coordinating interagency R&D efforts, OSTP actions should further synchronize with national efforts in workforce development, infrastructure, manufacturing, and supply chains. Emerging technologies promise to expand economic opportunity, improve public health, and enhance national security. Yet in policy discussions about their governance, discourse has at times leaned too far toward restraint, slowing the pace of progress. As a technologist, I remain fundamentally hopeful that technology can improve American lives and further our nation's flourishing. Thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Ms. Meyer.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee for the opportunity to appear before you today. I am honored to be here as President Trump's nominee for Undersecretary of Economic Affairs at the Department of Commerce, which oversees the BEA, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and the Census Bureau. Before I begin, I'd like to thank President Trump for nominating me to serve this great country, and Secretary Lutnick for his support of my nomination. I also want to recognize those who are supporting me today. First, my husband, Donald Meyer. Don and I met in college at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and it has been an adventure of a lifetime since then. Our daughter, Evangelina, made that adventure even better. Ava is missing class today with approval from her professors, and I'm beyond grateful to Don and Ava for their constant love and support. I appreciate, too, the support of my closest family and friends who are here today and watching online. I also want to recognize my late brother, Michael Yamat. Mikey died when we were teenagers, but his legacy continues to inspire me. Finally, I want to thank the first people who believed in me, my mom, Evelyn Yamat, a retired accountant, and my dad, Miguel Yamat, a retired engineer. My mom has entrusted to me an important family heirloom, which I bring here today, our family's American flag. She received this flag when she was sworn in as a naturalized U.S. citizen many years ago. It has always been placed next to the front door of our homes, first in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I was born, and again in Franklin, Wisconsin, where I grew up. It was and is a daily reminder of how blessed we are to live in the United States. It was also placed by the front door with reverence, so it could easily be retrieved in case of a house fire. This deep love of country is what led me to a 25-year career in public service. I was honored to serve in many roles on Capitol Hill, including as professional staff member of the now Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, as staff director of the House Ways and Means Committee, and as deputy chief of staff in the office of the Speaker of the House. I also had the honor of serving in President Trump's first White House as deputy assistant to the president for legislative affairs for the House. Throughout my public service, carrying out constitutional responsibilities depended on many critical components, including accurate, reliable data from the BEA and the Census Bureau. If confirmed, I will rely on my decades of service as an end user of this data. I will rely on the analytical skills I gained earning my executive MBA at Georgetown University. I will rely on my extensive experience leading large, complex teams. And I will rely on the impressive expertise within the BEA and Census. In the Speaker's office as Deputy Chief of Staff, overseeing the institutional responsibilities required careful focus to support more than 10,000 House employees in the DC area and throughout the country. The BEA and the Census Bureau also focuses on every area of the country at the local, state, regional, and national level, as outlined by the Constitution and statute. For example, the BEA data informs work on Capitol Hill, from the CBO baseline to the maximum annual rental rate for your home state Senate offices. And of course, BEA's calculation of the GDP informs decisions by policymakers and the business community. The Census Bureau carries out the decennial census and does vital work throughout each decade, including the well-known American Community Survey, which informs key economic indicators. If confirmed, I want to build upon the good work of both bureaus by focusing for the American people on 3 goals. First, ensuring the integrity and accuracy of data. The economy is always changing, with new markets emerging at a rapid pace. For data to be relevant, it must continue to accurately capture all dimensions of the economy. Second, leveraging technology to improve speed of data and analysis. Data needs to be timely and relevant. Optimizing the existing analytical talent will require faster data. And 3, achieving efficiency. The federal government has multiple statistical offices. We owe it to American taxpayers to strive for better ways to deliver data and analysis efficiently and not overlook any technological capabilities to do so. If confirmed, I look forward to these opportunities and for the honor to serve a country whose greatness endures, as symbolized by our family's American flag. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Graham, we'll start with you. ADSB is a technology that can receive or transmit location, altitude, velocity to air traffic control and other nearby aircraft faster than radar or other transponders. Unfortunately, the Army Black Hawk helicopter involved in the mid-air collision above the Potomac earlier this year was not transmitting ADSB, despite operating in congested airspace with civilian aircraft. This meant the Black Hawk, which should have never been flying in that area in the first place, was completely dark to airplanes arriving at DCA. In July, I introduced the Rotor Act, which would require all aircraft, commercial, business, general aviation, and military, to transmit their locations via ADSB. Widespread adoption of ADSB will improve aviation safety, as noted by your colleague, NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy. The NTSB has long called for broader use of ADSB. Mr. Graham, should virtually all aircraft be required to transmit their locations via ADSB and to receive ADSB signals from nearby aircraft?
Chairman Cruz, thank you for that question. First of all, as far as ADSB goes, with respect to the accident, it'd be inappropriate for me to draw any conclusions at that point because it hasn't been presented to the board as a final report with probable cause and conclusions, findings, recommendations. But as far as ADSB technology goes, it has an incredible safety potential if implemented correctly. I think it has great benefit for the future of being able to, for airports that don't have ground radar or any other kind of radar. I think those systems that are called the SAI initiative that the FAA is putting in control towers, I think it's great. The problem they have right now is they haven't put any warning or caution systems, either audio or visual, for the controllers to alert the controller that there might be an impending incursion. I've seen some of the technology that some of the avionics manufacturers are using it for in the cockpit, which is one of our recommendations that go back to 2000, that we ask for not just the control towers to have this data and be able to see aircraft, but also in the cockpit so pilots can start reacting quicker than waiting for a controller to tell them. So I believe in ADSB technology in the future, and I do think, especially in Class B airspace, in my personal opinion, all aircraft should have that on and when they're operating in that area.
In your professional judgment, would the flying public be safer if the Rotor Act were passed and ADSB in and out were required for aircraft in commercial airspace?
Thank you, Chairman Cruz, for that question. First of all, the NTSB, we don't normally endorse any legislation, but we do look at our recommendations that have been out there for some time, and I noticed some of those are included in the Rotor Act. We're always trying to have our recommendations either implemented by the regulator or legislatively by this body.
Okay, let me just try for a straightforward answer. Would the flying public be safer if ADSB in and out were required?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Klein, In your role at OSTP during the first Trump administration, you advanced the nation's AI strategy through the American AI Initiative and helped establish the tenets outlined in the 2020 National Artificial Intelligence Initiative Act. Some of those tenets were abused by the Biden administration. For instance, the Biden administration diverted NIST from its job of developing technical standards to policing what they called disinformation and stereotyping in AI, both of which were masked up censorship. As stakeholders and lawmakers talk about wanting to more tightly regulate AI, they should keep in mind that the last time Congress authorized AI standards-related activity, the American AI Initiative ended up being used by woke leftists in the Biden administration to guard against supposed harms like misgendering on ChatGPT or ChatGPT downplaying climate change. Thankfully, the Trump administration has put a stop to this nonsense and is stamping out woke AI. Why do you think the core tenets of the 2020 National AI Initiative Act, based on OSTP's earlier work, were implemented in unexpected ways during the Biden administration? Was that a departure from the statute or a result of the law's open-ended language, and how can we guard against it moving forward?
Chairman Cruz, thank you for your question. I had been involved in drafting of the 2019 executive order, which was the first ever signed by a president on artificial intelligence. And the language that we had used at that time was seeking to reduce barriers to safe testing and deployment that would help enable an industry adoption and ensure public trust in these technologies. In my personal belief, I think NIST, as a former National Bureau of Standards, is an excellent place to do use case and sector-specific standards that can help enable industry adoption and enable public trust. I think that the position of this administration is very much focused on that in terms of the America's AI Action Plan and the task specifically given to the Office of Science and Technology Policy in issuing an RFI that will seek to identify those kinds of barriers and places where we may need either deregulatory action, greater use of exemptions, waivers, or regulatory sandboxing, or places where we may actually need more regulatory clarity to, again, ensure industry adoption and public trust in this technology.
Thank you. Ranking Member Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To go back to this ADBS in and out issue, Mr. Graham, you're aware that, because you mentioned the time period, that this recommendation for mandating this was made a long time ago. So the point is, you support that recommendation, correct?
Absolutely, I do.
Okay, so the issue is, why wasn't it adopted? And the question is, in the FAA safety bill, we tried to get a larger role played by NTSB in getting an annual report on the highest risks that need to be addressed. And that has been implemented. And my guess is that you would say that this is one of the highest risks if it's not implemented.
I believe it's one of the higher risk, yes. Yes.
Okay, so the point is, what else do you think that NTSB can do? This is a gap, right? This is a gap between a safety organization that has to spend all the time on the details and a regulatory agency that seems to, in the last decade plus, try to ignore those recommendations. What else can we do to further get this implementation as a priority? What more can NTSB do?
I think at this point, all we can do, it reminds me of positive train control. We advocated for that for 50 years. This is 20-some years into this now with ADSB in technology. All we can do from the NTSB is continue to advocate for our recommendations and hope the regulator or this body does something and ask for the regulator to go ahead and make it regulatory in this case.
Well, the problem is our regulator hasn't been doing it. That's the big problem. And this, on ground incursion, basically, it was the chair who I purposely made come to a hearing and sat right next to the then acting administrator to call him out on why he hadn't implemented that recommendation. So And then finally, he held a forum 2 days later and said, oh yeah, we should implement this. So in this case, you know, sure, I called the chair before a committee and had her ask him the question, but why does that have to happen? Why can't we, you know, we need an aggressive NTSB. I get it. We're trying to change a big bureaucracy here for sure. But at the same time, we need the answers to Senator Cruz's questions made it seem like you were hesitant to advocate for this technology. And you may not want to advocate for an actual implementation in a bill because you may or may not know the details of various implementations. Senator Cruz and I disagree right now on, we want it implemented. We're like, well, this is way too long. We want it implemented now. So I get it, but at the same time, I need a more aggressive NTSB on calling out the lack of implementation by the FAA. We just do. And I'm sorry that that's the case. I wish we had a more aggressive FAA, but apparently we have people there that are right now rewriting the rules, trying to be more light touch again, so.
If I could answer that,
Yes, thank
Senator. It's not that I'm hesitant. What I'm hesitant about is talking about anything as ADSB's role in the DCA mid-air accident. I do not want to influence that investigation. We need to stay
Okay,
on.
I get it, okay.
Yeah,
Did
but
you
I
see
am
anything
totally,
wrong-
I'm
did you see
totally
anything-
into it.
Did you see anything wrong with Alvin Brown? Do you think did you see anything wrong with his behavior at NTSB?
Senator, all board members serve at the pleasure of the president, no matter who the president is.
I asked you if you saw anything wrong.
And from my standpoint, Senator, I have very little interaction with most of the other board members because the way our board is set up, the way we rule on things. So I had very little interaction with.
Okay, thank you.
With him.
Dr. Klein, we have to go to, I mean, I disagree with his firing. Dr. Klein, tell me about quantum, and do you believe that we need a National Quantum Initiative Reauthorization Act? This is something Senator Young, Durbin, and Daines and I have worked on. I plan to reintroduce it this Congress, but do you think we need a broad initiative here to be aggressive?
Senator, thank you for your question, and certainly, quantum, to me, there's a lot of discussion about AI right now, and I think rightfully so, but quantum is something that I don't think is talked about enough, and I know that this committee has been very much involved in that space. The National Quantum Initiative that was signed into law under the first Trump administration was a priority then, and I know that these actions to both further the R&D for quantum, but more so move towards commercialization and applications is a critically important matter at this time, and something that, if confirmed, I'd be very happy to work with your staff and this committee on.
And could you, for the record, answer a question related to that on fusion too? Could you, for the record, put something in what you think we should be doing on fusion? And Ms. Myers, if you could, my time's expired, but if you could, for the record, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, you mentioned a lot of things in your testimony about things that you think that we need to be broader on. We cannot have disagreement about statistics. I don't think we should have disagreements about science. I mean, science is science. We should listen to scientists. We should listen to engineers like your dad, who was a Boeing engineer. We should listen to these people. But in this case, I want you to outline how you prevent the administration from undermining the statistics. So my time's expired, so you'll have to do it for the record, but thank you so much for your willingness to address that. Thank you.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the witnesses, nominees for their service and their family members. I always appreciate the opening statements that focus on patriotism and service and family, so well done to all three of you. Off to a good start. Let me start with you, Dr. Klein. You did a reference, actually, to the space race with the Soviet Union, which is a high point in American science. And it was important that we won that race, which we did. Why is it similarly important that we win the AI race with the Chinese Communist Party?
Senator, thank you for your question. It's incredibly important because what we do in the United States will impact how the world adopts artificial intelligence, whether other countries will be built on an American AI stack or a Chinese AI stack. And along with that goes technical standards and everything that's going to set the future of applications across a range of sectors. Artificial intelligence is not confined, to any one, sector. It's something that will be adopted across medicine, across transportation, agriculture. These are things we're already seeing today.
And national security as well, right? And national security, right? If China wins the AI race, their ability to have a more lethal military starts to raise its ugly head too. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think it's critically important that we focus not just on the research and development aspects, but also the adoption, both by industry, by our own government, and that includes national security. Yes.
Good. Let me ask another question that often gets missed on the AI race. So it's a lot about energy. It's a lot about electrons. The Biden administration, when they're in power, they were all about shutting down American energy, especially in places like my state. Alaska suffered through 70 executive orders by Joe Biden to singularly shut down Alaska. We were sanctioned more than Iran and Venezuela, and those are terrorist states, just because we produce energy in the Biden administration and like American energy. So tell me about the importance of having American energy produced as part of the AI race.
Well, absolutely, Senator. Energy is something that we hear more about from the technology companies than the technology itself, in truth. And it's a shame if that would be a bottleneck for our ability to innovate and to adopt this technology.
When we have more energy than any other, you think we have more energy than China? Hell yeah. We need to unleash it, not shut it down. And don't you think that's important for the winning of the AI race?
Certainly, and actually Pillar 2 of the AI action plan is exactly focused on that. It's focused on the infrastructure, and that includes both the data centers that will be needed, but also all the underlying energy infrastructure. And this administration under President Trump has taken a number of different executive orders seeking to unleash that energy. In one area that I know very personally in terms of nuclear energy, we've had just an incredible opportunity now to enable that testing, enable quicker deployment of these reactors for commercial deployment and also for government use.
Good. Yeah, one of the first EOs President Trump signed on his first day in office was an executive order called Unleashing Alaska's Extraordinary Resource Potential, which of course I appreciated, but that's good not just for Alaska, good for America, and it's good for the AI race. Mr. Graham, let me commend you on your service, your naval aviator service, which I think is wonderful. I noticed the chairman, Chair Nominees, in the audience here, so we appreciate her wonderful service. She's doing a great job. We have the highest crash rates in aviation in Alaska for a whole host of reasons. The NTSB put out a study on this a number of years ago, which launched the FAA Alaska Safety Initiative, what we call the FOSI initiative. And one of the things that I want to work with you on, and I'd like your commitment on, is that we have non-FAA service providers that can develop more precise, lower minimum procedures for using GPS-based technology, but they don't receive federal support and often can't publish procedures for public use under current FAA policies. One of our challenges in Alaska is we don't have basic infrastructure at our many, many airports that the lower 48 airports do. So can I work with you on this, the chair, the secretary? They're all very focused on advancing this FOSI initiative so we can bring down the crash rates and the death rates in Alaska aviation, which is the highest in the country.
Senator, absolutely. You have my commitment to work with you, and I'm sure the board has had a long history of working with the Alaska community and trying to make it safer. We understand how important aviation is to your state.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Myers, I do appreciate the flag. That's a great opening statement you had there. But I will follow up on Senator Cantwell's question. The Bureau of Labor Statistics revised its job estimates between April 2024 and March 2025 by almost 1 million fewer jobs. That was the largest downward revision in almost a quarter century. What's going on there, and how can we fix that? That is a disaster for people who rely on that important data.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. I really appreciate the important question. I'll start first by saying BLS is not, it's at the Department of Labor. It's not currently under Commerce. I don't have visibility into the work that BLS has done. But I very much appreciate your question, because an important part of the integrity and accuracy of data is the transparency that comes with revisions. If confirmed, I look forward to continuing the good work that is done at Census and Bureau to place priority on accuracy and integrity. Revisions are part of the process, I know, particularly with the data that they do. And I think it's important to continue that, to continue to look at ways to ensure that as data comes in, it is reflecting an accurate measure of the economy or the specific sector it's focused on.
Good, good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you to my colleague from Alaska. I am disappointed that there was no questions about AI's application to fishing, but we'll have to do that for the second round. I recognize Senator Young.
There are applications, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to our 3 nominees. It's good to see each of you. Dr. Klein, I know it was several months ago now that we visited in my office, and we talked about the development, commercialization, and deployment of all sorts of emerging technologies. And I thought it was especially beneficial to discuss with you our role as Congress in this process of facilitating public-private partnerships, so that we can make sure we sustain our ecosystem of basic research, pathways to commercialization, and the elimination of unnecessary barriers. As you know, I'm working relatedly on an initiative for quantum computing and quantum more generally, a National Quantum Initiative Reauthorization Act. And our effort here is to attempt to continue the acceleration of quantum computing, development, and deployment here in the United States. And I think your assistance in this role that you've been nominated for could greatly assist Congress in moving this legislation across the finish line, creating predictability, and ensuring we have the authorities to win the quantum race, as we're calling it. Can you speak to why Congress must act and foster programs to accelerate basic research and commercialization of quantum?
Certainly, and thank you for your question, Senator, and I very much enjoyed our discussion several months ago. As I had mentioned to Senator Cantwell, quantum is an incredibly important priority for this nation. It will have incredible applications across not only science, but national security as well. And while there's been a lot of investment and focus on the research and development piece, and we certainly need to continue to invest in that basic research, there's also a role to play for the federal government in moving towards that commercialization and moving towards applications of quantum. That's if we want to build out a domestic industry here that includes everything from the infrastructure, the supply chains, and the workforce that's going to be required. Both those high-skilled STEM PhDs that we'd love to see more Americans taking that path, and also a technically skilled workforce that's going to be able to have quantum jobs here in America.
And can the administration do it all by itself? Or is
Certainly
congressional
not.
action required? This is what we call a leading question in the business? All right.
Yes, Senator. Certainly, it requires both the legislative and the executive branches to work together, and if confirmed, I would be very excited to work on this topic with you.
Likewise. Thank you. Let me move on, Dr. Klein, so that we might discuss another tech vector in which you have deep expertise, and that's drone technology. I represent the most manufacturing-intensive state in the country, as my colleagues are tired of hearing. I understand the importance and the economic opportunities of increased commercialization of our technologies, including drones. But I also understand the challenges associated with deployment. Scaling production isn't straightforward, especially for systems as complex as unmanned aerial vehicles. Dr. Klein, where do you see the most pressing opportunities for Congress to support the mass manufacture of U.S.-made drones?
Certainly. I think from a congressional perspective, the drone industrial base, there's a few different levers that can be used to ensure American dominance in this area, which was the subject of a recent presidential executive order. I believe both federal procurement preferences for secure U.S.-made drones, supply chain and standards setting in this area is another critical area. And this is something that we've seen truly an explosion of interest in across industries and across sectors from the first Trump administration. We worked on some of that initial kind of deregulatory action, regulatory sandboxing, which I think today has kind of led towards this continued integration of unmanned aircraft systems into the national airspace system. So on the industrial base, certainly towards standard setting, towards procurement, and towards incentivizing the growth of a domestic manufacturing base are incredibly important.
Goodness, 30 seconds left. Are there any remaining obstacles that are top of mind for you as it relates to drone deployment? Key obstacles that stand in the way of creating an environment that supports not just innovation and design, we're pretty good at that, but actually getting drones out into the field?
Certainly, I think the one important part is, again, the regulatory sandboxing. There's recently announcement on an eVTOL integration pilot program in the spirit of the unmanned aircraft system pilot program that occurred under the first Trump administration. The publication and hopefully soon use of a beyond visual line of sight rule is another first step in being able to expand the set of safe operations for drones. And I think as we're able to get additional regulatory clarity, additional use of these drones across sectors, it'll provide for a stronger kind of draw for a domestic industrial base.
Thanks again, Doctor. Congrats to all our nominees. Chair.
Thank you. Recognize Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Each of our nominees, congratulations on your nomination. Ms. Meyer, the 2030 census will determine how communities across the country are going to receive millions of dollars in federal funding for roads, for hospitals and bridges, as well as determine the political representation that they have here in Congress. It's absolutely essential, and I believe you know this from our discussion earlier, that the Census Bureau prepare so that the 2030 count is accurate, timely, and reliable. It's a lot of work between now and then. And the next step to prepare for the 2030 count is to conduct a test run of the census in 2026 at 6 sites around the country. I am concerned about the status of the preparation for this 2026 census test, and I understand that the Bureau has not yet even begun hiring, which is behind the curve of what we've seen in the past. And also, the Census Bureau has refused to provide updates to me on the status of preparation for this test. So my question for you is, first off, do you commit to prioritizing preparation and hiring for the 2026 census if you are indeed confirmed?
Senator, thank you very much for the question. Thanks, too, for taking the time, you and your team. I very much appreciated our discussion. And thanks, too, for highlighting the important work of the census. As we know, this is a core responsibility, particularly as outlined by the Constitution. And incidentally, today is National Constitution Day. 287 years ago, the Constitution was signed. So I think it's particularly timely, and with the work that's focused in preparation for 2030, as you know, I'm not in the role, so I can't speak to any specifics, but what I can tell you is that if confirmed, I commit to working with you and the committee, and also keeping a focus on the appropriate levels of staffing and resources that will be required.
So I know you as from our discussion, you know that this is a big responsibility, and it's going to take a considerable amount of your efforts going forward. Could you tell the committee what steps you're thinking about right now of taking to prepare for this census test? I'm sure you've given it some thought. Could you share some of those ideas with us, please?
Senator, thank you. And I know this is a very important issue, particularly given your role and the important focus you and your team have put into the census. As I mentioned, I'm not in the role, but I do look forward to, if confirmed, exploring ways to ensure that there are no, for example, technological capabilities that would be overlooked in order to support the good work of the census in preparation for 2030. I also look forward to exploring and making sure that there are ways to apply any takeaways from previous experiences, previous census, and also in making sure that the data that has continues to be analyzed informs the next steps in regards to the census for 2030.
Ms. Meyer, this summer, President Trump called on the Department of Commerce to conduct a new census to take place immediately that excludes non-citizens. No law permits the president from unilaterally conducting a whole new census at this point between censuses. Any change to the census would require amending the Census Act and approval from Congress. So my question for you is, do you agree that the president is unable to conduct a new census now unless Congress passes a law to actually authorize it?
Senator, thanks again for the continued focus and opportunity to respond on this very topic, this important topic of the census. In regards to, as I'm not in the role, I've not been part of, I don't have any decision-making authority or have not been part of the discussions. If it confirmed, I do look forward to complying with the law and ensuring that all of the steps that are taken as you outlined, particularly in preparation for 2030, I look forward to carrying that out and joining alongside those who work at the census.
So do you agree that a law needs to be passed? I didn't hear that in your answer. I apologize.
Senator, in regards to this, I'm not in the role, but if confirmed, I do look forward to continuing to work with you and the committee in regards to these issues.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and congratulations to all three of you for being nominated. It's quite an honor, and look forward to serving with all of you. We'll start with you, Dr. Klein. I'm no nuclear scientist. One of us is. How do you work to make certain that as we develop AI technology, that it filters through to help working Americans? That it doesn't displace them, it doesn't eliminate them, but rather enables them and empowers them? Like, how do we focus in on that?
Certainly, and Senator, thank you for the question. Any action that this administration would take with regard to AI has to have the American worker core and center. It's been a big push within the America's AI Action Plan is to focus on ways that that the federal government can assess where there may be, new job opportunities, new areas, new sectors that Americans should be trained up for jobs of the future, and that ensuring that we are investing in any reskilling or ability for American workers to include and involve AI in their daily work to, increase efficiency and make their jobs, more enjoyable. So I think that everything that we do has to be data informed, and I think that's one step, is to ensure that we have the appropriate data and information and understanding of how industry is adopting these technologies and how it may have downstream impacts, and then ensuring that we're training Americans from the start on these kinds of technologies. The president had signed an executive order focusing on K through 12 AI education, of which there was a task force meeting just a week and a half ago. And the focus there is really ensuring that from the very start, we're able to train young Americans to understand what do these technologies mean, how can they leverage them for their education and future in the workforce, and ensuring that Americans already in the workforce are able to benefit from these technologies.
No, that's absolutely critical. And obviously what we need to do is make certain that whatever we do on a public policy side, that we're keeping the American worker in mind. So thank you for that answer. Another question. Obviously, huge opportunity in government computing and government services with AI, because our systems, let's just say, are from before probably you were born. So the question becomes, how do we leapfrog and get back into competitiveness and there's a lot of opportunities that we can use AI. I have one concern, though. I've heard anecdotally, just want to see if this is something that you're focused on or the office is focused on, is that these AI providers are not allowing the government to use their AI tools for whether it's ICE or law enforcement. Do I have your commitment to look into that to see why these companies are not allowing the government, who's contracting with these companies for large sums of money, not to allow them to use their tools at ICE or other law enforcement agencies?
Senator, thank you for the question. And while that likely falls outside of OSTP's specific purview, we're constantly engaged with individuals at the Office of Management and Budget, within the Office of Federal CIO, and the different CIO councils. And that would be certainly something where I'd be happy to work with, if confirmed, work with you and the committee to ensure that all government services are able to benefit from the wealth that these technologies can provide.
Yeah, because you can imagine the problem where you have the government going out and contracting with these companies, hundreds of millions of dollars, and the company saying, yeah, you can use it for this, but not for that. That's deeply concerning, and certainly would ask you to take a look at that when you're confirmed. I'm the optimist here. The last question for you is, obviously there's a lot of hype around things like Grok and ChatGPT, but could you talk just for the record where the real applications of AI are? Because again, we've had Google for a long time, and I view kind of those other applications as kind of an advancement on that, but that's not really where the action is. Can you kind of talk about where you see the true real applications of AI?
Certainly, Senator. So again, I would focus at a use case and sector-specific kind of level. If you're talking about medical diagnostics, where AI can be used to enhance and augment existing diagnostic capabilities for early detection of cancer. In the transportation space, we had the rich discussion there on unmanned aircraft systems, for example, automated driving systems as well. The Department of Transportation rolled out a new AV policy framework. These are the areas that already today we're seeing the benefits of AI technology. And if confirmed, one big priority for me in terms of what actions we take on AI policy should be around industry adoption at the endpoint where the American people can benefit from these technologies.
Perfect, thank you. And just actually one last question for you, then I'll jump to the other ones, is there's a comment made by the ranking member that science is fact. You have a PhD and you studied undergraduate. Can you address that? Is science fact?
I think science is a process of understanding to the best of our abilities, any given kind of.
But it's never fact. In other words, quite the opposite, right? There's never a fact. If that was the case, well, we'd be believing that the world is flat today, because that was maybe the thought 3,000 years ago. So science is ever evolving, and it's about exploration and learning. It's not about a conclusion that you sit with and say there is indisputable that this is true, although there are some sets of indisputable facts. Science is a process of learning and a journey. Is that correct?
Certainly. Yes, Senator.
Right, just to make sure. And go to you, Mr. Graham. Obviously the work that the NTSB does, can you explain just, again, for the record, clean up some of the questions I heard from my colleagues? The NTSB is not the FAA, right? Just for the record, just to make sure that we have that clear.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, the NTSB is an independent safety organization. We do investigations, we do safety studies, and our products are mainly our recommendations. So we're not a regulator.
Right, so you're not making decisions as to what equipment goes on planes, what equipment doesn't go on planes. You're not in the business of passing legislation, is that correct?
Correct.
We're impartial investigator.
We're
Just find the facts.
impartial. We have, what I like to say is we have no horse in the race. So we come in, we're unbiased, we let the facts guide us to where they'll lead us, and we come up with the conclusions at that point. And our sole product is recommendations, which are usually very generic, and we leave that up to the regulator and the industry to determine how best to approach that recommendation and implement it so that we don't have another accident like that again.
Perfect. And thank you for your work, and thank you, the chairman, for your work on that. It's, you guys are asked to do enormous amount of work in a very short period of time with an increasingly impatient public, where social media expects you to resolve it in a law and order sort of way, where in 1 hour the crime is committed and 60 minutes later the verdict is rendered. And I don't think that's reality. So thank you for working and doing great impartial work. Ms. Meyer, I don't want to leave you alone, and since I'm alone up here, I'm going way over my time, but it's my prerogative here. So the question for you is, you had some questions from my Democrat colleagues. Do you suspect the president's going to come ask you your opinion as to what his executive order should look like, or do you think that's probably going to be the president to look to you and the secretary to implement his prerogatives?
Senator, thank you for the question. Thanks, too, for the time that you and your team spent. I appreciated our discussion.
So the question was, like, what was your opinion on whether the census should be, you don't expect that the president's going to walk into your office and go, I'm not sure about this. Can you give me your opinion? He's going to expect you to implement whatever he feels is compliant with the law. Is that accurate?
Senator, that's in terms of this role, it is in regards to the data and implementing what is required, right? So what you highlight is basically the role itself. The focus is on data. It is not on policy. And so, if confirmed, I very much look forward to serving.
Yeah, and data doesn't have opinions or feelings, right? Just to make sure we're on the same page there. But thank you to all three of you. Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for the work that you've done prior to getting here. And again, it's a great honor to all of you that the President of the United States has nominated you for these positions. It'll be our honor here, at least speaking for myself, to confirm all three of you in these positions. So Mr. Graham, Mr. Klein, and Mrs. Meyer, my final question is required of all nominees. If confirmed, do you pledge to work collaboratively with this committee to provide thorough and timely responses to the committee's requests and to appear before the committee when requested? Mr. Graham?
Senator, yes.
Dr. Klein?
Senator, yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Senator, yes.
Thank you. I have 6 letters of support from various organizations for Mr. Graham's and Mr. Klein's nomination, and I ask unanimous consent to be inserted into hearing. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Senators will have until the close of business September 19th to submit questions for the record. The nominees will have until the close of business on September 22nd to respond to those questions. That concludes today's hearing. The committee stands adjourned.